I believe that in almost every situation, there is a deal structure that puts everyone on the same side of the table. Or in other words, everyone rows in the same direction.
Welcome to Honest Ecommerce, a podcast dedicated to cutting through the BS and finding actionable advice for online store owners. I'm your host, Chase Clymer, and I believe running a direct-to-consumer brand does not have to be complicated or a guessing game. On this podcast, we interview founders and experts who are putting in the work and creating real results. I also share my own insights from running our top Shopify consultancy, Electric Eye. We cut the fluff in favor of facts to help you grow your e-commerce business. Let's get on with the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Honest Ecommerce. Today, I'm welcoming to the show Brian Anderson. Brian is a CEO and advisor. He's been on a few board of directors. Your LinkedIn profile reads like just accolades of what people want to be doing in this industry. Brian, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. I'm doing great. Thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great. So I guess if you want to just set some expectations for the listeners, what are, if you're trying to brag, what are some of the brands that you've helped do some cool things for?
Yeah, so I have my classical background, if you will, is running lower middle market companies, right? So I've been CEO of, 3 or 4 companies that are, 50, 100, 150, $200 million companies. And in most of those, we got hired by private equity to go in, run it, grow it, and help them sell it. And so I've done that a few times and, it's been great. But I have, most people who do that only do that. And I have kind of an unusual mix that I've also done a handful of startups. And that gives a completely different set of experiences. It's different energy, different skill sets, different everything. And then I've done some stuff in between as well. So I've got a really strange background, but it's been pretty cool. And it's given me a lot of great experiences. I worked probably most popularly with AG1. Chris Ashenden, the founder of AG1, we became friends and he asked me to come in and help pretty early stage. I was there in 2017, 18. And as kind of their head of traditional growth and CEO of North America. So that was a super cool experience. I have, I've spent most of my time in doing something related to healthy lifestyle. So sporting goods, morphing into fitness, which has morphed into wellness, which kind of morphed into supplements. And I've had 1 or 2 excursions outside of that. But for the most part, I do things I'm passionate about. And I'm passionate about sports and fitness and health.
Absolutely. I guess, there are folks listening to this show and, the business part of our industry is interesting to them and they have aspirations to be a CEO one day. How do you do that? I don't think there's like a really straightforward path out there to end up being hired as a CEO. So I guess kind of what was your journey like? How unique was that?
Yeah. Oh my God, Jason, I've got a hilarious story for it. I always knew that's what I wanted to do, but you got to work your way up to it, right? You've got to get your experience in something and, and sort of get that first break. But this is kind of hilarious. I was, my major in college had nothing to do with any of this. I was a chemical engineer, hated every second of it. It was just awful, but it was a means to an end. And I had this professor this older Chinese guy, and he was hilarious. He used to give everyone nicknames and they were clever, funny nicknames. And mine was Will Be CEO. So I guess I had that vibe a long time ago. But, anyone who gets to the point of running a business, and titles don't matter, GM, president, CEO, doesn't matter. But if you're running a business and running a team and responsible for the P&L, you've got to get there in some way. Some people come, up through product, or some people come through the commercial side of the business, sales, marketing. Some people get their chops in operations. Some get it in finance. But it's really just about wanting it and gaining the breadth of experience along the way, right? Because if you're, let's say, just a commercial person, if I'm marketing and growth and revenue generation, you've got to get that experience in operations, in legal and finance, and, product. At some point along the way. So those who kind of want to get to a general management role of running a company or running a business, best thing you can do along the way is make sure that you just use every opportunity you can to get a broad set of experiences, because that really marks running a business well, is you don't have to be excellent at anything, but, except being a leader and team and HR stuff. But besides that, you just have to be pretty solid at everything, right? Because when you run a business, things are coming at you, and you've got to deal, with the sexy stuff like product and growth and marketing and all that. But you've got to deal with operations and warehousing and sourcing and legal and finance and debt and, all that crap that most people don't like to deal with. So that to me marks to me that's kind of the skill set of a good leader, is be a really good people person, a good collaborative team leader, leader of people, and also recruiter, right? You've got to build a great team and motivate that team. Mm-hmm. But other than that, you just got to kind of be solid at a little bit of everything. Kind of, I'm like an amateur lawyer, and I'm an amateur finance guy, and I'm an amateur operations person, and I'm an amateur growth.
Yeah. I'm glad you're highlighting that, because I was going to be like, it sounds like you need to be, this is the only place where you want to be a jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
You just need to be able to talk about the finer points of that area of expertise and be able to delegate and know what good looks like.
Yep, totally. And I'll add something to that. Company size has a lot to do with how good you have to be at getting in the weeds. If I'm running $100 million company, then I've got money flowing in. You've got money to play with. If I'm weak at tech, or if I'm, you can build a senior team, or, a team of C-level team or a VP level team or whatever. You've got the money to build, to bring in really damn good people. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right? I feel like a good visionary leader understands the business and where it needs to go and what's going to make it grow and flourish. And then you put the best people possible in place, and then sort of create that collaborative leadership. But inevitably, for a larger company, you've got the means to go hire really good people. But in a small company, like startup phase, early days, 5, 10, 20 million in revenues, you can't just go throw around cash and hire, competent C-level people for $200,000 or $300,000 or $400,000. You've got to get in the weeds. So that's a big part of it. Like you were just saying, I do agree that you kind of have to be, you have to get it across all functions enough to lead. But when you're running a larger company, you can kind of lead and pull the puppet strings. But when you're doing a smaller company, you got to get in the weeds. Like, when I dive in and help a smaller company, a $5 or $10 million company, legal, like I look at that legal bill and I'm like, I'm cutting that bill because I'm going to do the legal work myself, right? If something's really intricate or tricky, I'd pull a lawyer in, but I'm not paying $500 an hour and racking up a $50,000 legal bill. I'm going to dive in and do contracts myself. CFO, can't afford a full-time CFO. Get a good fractional one and then get in the weeds. Same thing with operations, same thing with growth. So it's, totally agree with you, but it's very it's size dependent,
yeah.
Right? If you've got the revenues, or if you've raised enough capital to go hire good people, that's the other part.
But it also sounds like you're, regardless, you're still hiring for your weaknesses, but you understand what you're good at and what you can take on at those smaller revenues. Yeah,
100%, Chase. That is one of the most critical things, is being honest with oneself about what you're really good at and what you're not, right? I can tell you, like, if you ask me the question, what of all the functions that needed to run a company, what are your strongest points? What are your weakest points? What are ones in the middle? I could answer just like this, because I know myself and I've had to deal with it, right? Like, I know there are certain functions where somebody gets hit by a bus, I step in and we're good to go. But there are other functions where I'm like, oh shit, we've got to find somebody really good at that, because I really don't know what I'm doing, or I'm not very good at it. Tech is not my thing. So I need strong tech team, strong, tech resources in the company. But there are other functions where, so what you just said is very true, which is sort of know your weaknesses, know your strengths. And so that's a self-reflection thing, right? It's about knowing ourselves, but also it's about recognizing who's really good at what they do in the organization. Because, like, let's say I come in and join, let's say I invest in an early stage company and I come in to run it or help run it. Or if I get hired by private equity to come run a larger thing, it'll take a month or two or three if really do it well. But the first step is I get to know all the people. And the whole point of it is you gotta know who's really strong and who's not. And then try to, mentor and guide the people who aren't as strong in their function. But at the end of the day, you might have to cut bait. So you got to understand each function well enough to know where the weaknesses are. And then you have to step in and figure it out.
Absolutely. What was your first job where you actually had that CEO title?
That's good. Well, I think the first general management title, the first time I ran a business, which my title was president, and then after that it was mostly CEO. But again, to me, the title didn't matter. I was running a business. I'll back up a little before that. So what got me into this diabolical business of consumer products and, relatively small companies was, I went to the Wharton Business School, and two buddies of mine from Wharton invented a product. So when we all finished, most people were heading to Wall Street and working 18 hours a day and making lots of money. And that's probably what I should have done. But these two guys were like, man, we're going to launch this product. We're going to do this. We're doing it on our own. We raised, a few million in capital from classmates. And I dove in as, they were co-CEOs, and I dove in as head of sales and marketing. And we grew that company from a few $100,000 in revenues to 45 million in 5 years, and then eventually sold to private equity. So that was not a general management role because there were two CEOs, but, I was head of sales and marketing, head of everything, related to marketing and revenue generation. So, and I was involved in other parts of the business. So after that, I got, my door got knocked on by a bunch of recruiters, and I ended up as president of a company no one's ever heard of. It was called EB Brands or EB Sport Group. But we had a strategy that people would recognize. We licensed well-known sport brands and sold fitness accessories under those brands. So we licensed brands like Under Armour, Reebok, Everlast, Weight Watchers, and then we would produce products under those brands and sell to big retail. And this is a long time ago. It's just pre-D2C. But that was the first time I was a true general, truly ran a business. And it was successful. It was a $30 million business when I got there, and it was about $120 when I exited.
I have been in business for nearly 20 years, and very few companies I have hired in that time have performed as well as Electric Eye. They have knowledgeable staff, and our project was delivered on time and on budget. Electric Eye has exceeded my expectations, and I look forward to working with them again. That is a direct quote from one of our clients at Electric Eye. Electric Eye is a Shopify Plus partner that has helped over 100 brands migrate, redesign, and optimize their stores since 2016. If you'd like to increase your conversion rate, average order value, and revenue per session, we are the true Shopify experts you've been looking for. Right now, we're offering a free diagnostic to qualified brands that reach out and mention the podcast. Visit electriceye.io today to schedule a call and send us a message. Find out why we have over 50 5-star reviews in the Shopify partner directory. Again, that's electriceye.io, electriceye.io. What if every customer could help grow your brand without you lifting a finger? Social Snowball is the platform that turns word of mouth into a real growth engine for Shopify and TikTok shops. Here's how it works. Every time someone buys from you, Social Snowball can automatically turn that customer into an affiliate, giving them a unique referral link or discount code instantly. They can share it wherever they're already posting. Instagram stories, TikTok videos, YouTube hauls, you name it. You'll be able to track every referral and influencer sale, send commission payouts in 2 clicks, block codes from leaking to coupon sites, automate influencer seeding and gifting, and let affiliates cash out using over 700 payout options. Plus, it works seamlessly with your existing tech stack and channels like Shopify, Klaviyo, PostScript, and your TikTok shop dashboard. The craziest part is they are basically giving away free money. You can launch your affiliate program for free, which shouldn't take longer than a day if you focus, and enjoy a 30-day trial before ever paying for the app. That's right. You can use this software to turn your customers into affiliates for 30 days for free. To take advantage of this offer, go to socialsnowball.io/honest. That's socialsnowball.io/honest. Again, that's socialsnowball.io/honest. Would $1,000 help your business? Portless is giving new customers $1,000 to reinvest back into their business just for getting started. Right now, you are probably paying tariffs on most items in your warehouse before you even make a sale. That means your cash is just sitting there, trapped in inventory that might not even get sold. Not exactly a recipe for growth, right? But what if we told you there's a smarter way? With Portless, you only pay tariffs when an order ships after you've been paid by your customers. That means free up more working capital instantly, turn inventory into cash faster, and completely eliminate the risk of paying tariffs on unsold stock. Here's how it works. Portless helps you ship directly from China to your customers' doorsteps in just 5 to 8 days. Yes, that's exactly what Shein and Temu do, and you can do it too. You get access to your inventory days after manufacturing, keep less stock on hand, and only pay duties on what actually sells. No more guessing games, no more cash flow nightmares, just smarter, faster scaling. And remember, all new Portless customers get $1,000 to reinvest back into their business. Schedule your free strategy call today. Visit portless.com/honest. That's portless.com/honest. One more time, that's portless.com/honest. Shopify makes it easy to sell online, but unlocking streamlined global sales demands more. Don't let high cross-border fees, frustrating payment failures, and complex tax requirements hold back your store's international growth. Activate Reach instead. As a merchant of record, Reach helps high-growth brands like yours optimize global sales with local processing and automated tax compliance, all while protecting your store from fraud. Reach is already integrated with Shopify, so you can activate Reach with no extra dev work and start seeing results fast. Brands like Pvolve and Everlane trust Reach to boost international approval rates to over 90% and cut cross-border costs by up to 40%. Expanding globally is just the first step. Optimizing performance is where the growth happens. Book a free, no-obligation consultation today and learn how you can level up your global sales at withreach.com/honest. That's withreach.com/honest. withreach.com/honest. You mentioned earlier and just now, like private equity has kind of played a bit of a role in your career. And what are those investors looking for in making a hire like yourself?
Proven history of growing and exiting, really. I mean, that's the, and also like you have to be well liked. I mean, they're going to, and any sophisticated recruiter or VC group or private equity is going to look into your background. And if you've got skeletons, it's not going to work out. So, it's about proof points. It's about having been there and done that, because they made a big investment. And the partners at that firm are tied into it, right? They're in that for the long run. They'll make a lot of money if the company exits for a lot more money. So they just, experience is a big deal. And I think that plays into the founder world as well, because, certainly lots of people found companies, lead it forever and do great and become amazing leaders and, grow companies big. But sometimes people bring outside CEOs in, and that's often the reason. The reason is often to give investors for a future capital raise or for a future exit confidence that, that somebody's been there, done that.
Yeah, I've seen that quite a few times with companies I've worked with or brands I'm familiar with, where founder can get them to a certain point, and it isn't for they believe in themselves, but they understand the best thing for the business is to get someone that other people believe in to do the job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very common scenario. For founders, and I've been part of startups, but I've never purely founded a company that was 100% my idea and I was the leader. So, but I've partnered with founders and invested in early stage companies, so I've been around it a lot. But it's interesting how different people get to that place for different reasons. Sometimes people start a company, what's required to start up is kind of a beautiful thing to me that I'm missing some elements of, like I've always considered myself an entrepreneurial guy, but maybe not a pure entrepreneur, because I've never been the guy that's like, this is my idea and I'm going to, knock down every wall until I make this happen. I'm a wall knocker downer, but I'm typically not that idea person. But the sort of oomph that it takes for, that founders have that are just ready to knock down every wall to make this happen is beautiful. Like I love being around that energy. But what happens is then the complication of a business comes at them, right? Oh shit, I've got HR issues. I've got to raise capital. I'm running out of money. We've got debt. Operations messed up. New tariffs are coming, like whatever. Right. And quite often the things about which a founder is passionate, maybe it's product, maybe it's the commercial side of the business, building the brand in the business or social, they do it for that reason. They're passionate about that. And then they get down the road and they're like, 90% of my day is full of other stuff. Yeah. Right. I don't even get to do the stuff I like anymore. So sometimes it's a recognition that this thing has gotten bigger than my skill sets are appropriate for. And I really need somebody who's been there, done that to help us get to the next level. And sometimes it's a desire thing. Some people are like, I've been successful. I can do this, but I don't like doing it. Like I enjoy product and marketing, but I don't enjoy legal and finance and accounting and dealing with investors and, operations or whatever. So, I feel like the reasons people bring, outside leaders or CEOs in varies.
Yeah, I've even seen some people, what gets them up out of bed every day is they love that kind of hard finding product market fit, building a business. They love that 0 to 1 part of it. And then when things get easy, they get bored and they're like, I just want to go do it again. And then I oftentimes see that's when maybe they're not bringing a CEO, they're just like selling the business.
Yep, exactly. And when it's time to do that, like if someone has been successful enough that they've got a realistic exit, they've got, got a strategy to sell. Sometimes it helps to bring, so if somebody, let's take the scenario that you just said. Mm-hmm. Someone founded a business, it was really successful, and they're like, I want to sell it and go do it again because I'm passionate about some other thing. That can work just like that, no problem. But what's going to happen is when they sell it, whomever buys it, whether it's, PE or VC or private investors or whatever, are going to put a leader in there, right? Or sometimes there's usually a 1 to 3 year transition period where the founder gets paid for a couple of years and they sort of fade off into the distance. But the new owner has to hire someone to run that company. So it's in my opinion, it's smart for a founder who's thinking of exit to not sell on their own and wait for someone to come in, but to bring that leader in, bring their chosen leader in before the exit to, number one, help prep them for the exit, right? Help maximize the value upon exit, right? Which is means the sale price is going to be higher. And also to kind of make sure that they've groomed or prepped someone to take care of their baby. Yeah. Because if you don't do that as a founder and you just sell and then, you're not going to be happy for sure. There's no founder who's 100% happy with someone who was hired to come in and run their business that wasn't chosen by then. They're like, oh my God, you should have done this. You should have done this. I would have done this differently. But, so I'm a believer in if you founded a company, you're ready to sell it and you're ready for exit, bring in some outside help. Maybe it's a full-time CEO. Maybe it's just an advisor, or somebody to kind of like a right-hand person to sit there and help make sure the financials are crystal clear so that buyers understand what's going on in the business, make sure that things are positioned, on the, financial side, make sure the org chart's as clean as possible, the cap, just everything, to make that company, to make the sale go as easily as possible and to maximize the valuation.
Yeah. If, you're just trying to ride off into the sunset and not have a replacement in place, that is a bad investment.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. Right. Whomever's looking at buying your company is going to be like, whoa, what am I, because you then have to trust the new leader with with the founder gone. It's interesting. I do kind of a variety of things. I'm an advisor to a few companies, on the board of a few companies. And, right now I'm not doing anything full time. I'm looking for my next full time gig, but, one of the myriad of things I do is that I'm kind of an informal advisor to an investment banking group called CTH Advisors. And this concept of bringing a leader in pre-exit to help maximize the exit. This group, CTH Advisors, has actually created a structure that is exactly for that reason. So CTH Advisors is a loose affiliation of about 15 investment bankers who, raise capital and sell companies across a bunch of industries. But, and that's typical, right? It's an investment banking firm. But in addition to that, they've brought in 7 or 8 people like me, I'm one of them, who are experienced CEOs who have built companies and exited companies, multiple times. And their concept is if we get a sell side investment banking engagement, meaning we found a company where, like, I'll give you an example. There's one of the clients recently was a wine distribution company in Napa. Found a founder-led business. They had built a $80 or $100 million company, and the family was ready to sell. But this had been their baby for a long time. So they hired one of the bankers at CTH Advisors to be the banker on the deal and go find buyers for it. But they also took one of my colleagues, who's an experienced CEO, and came in to sort of be the right-hand person, the right-hand man, if you will, of the founder, of the founding family, to kind of handhold and guide them through the process. And it made the experience much better. That firm has actually trademarked the term CEO whisperer. And it's with that in mind, right? So the people like my buddy Dan or I would come in and sort of guide the founders through the sale process to make it more comfortable and, avoid pitfalls and try to maximize valuation. And they call it CEO whisperer. So pretty interesting. But it's interesting that a firm's built an entire strategy around this.
I mean, it does, especially if you are, it shows you the character of that business where they want everyone to win, which is great relationships to be in on the business world with when you folks have abundance mindset and they know that there is enough to go around when it's a good deal. So yeah, that's just a beautiful thing. Abundance
mindset's such a good term. I'm glad you brought that up. This is unrelated to what I do and what we're talking about right now, but one of my strongest philosophies in business, or really in life, that I've developed over time is exactly what you said. It's the abundance mindset's one I haven't heard in a while, but I believe that in almost every situation, there is a deal structure that puts everyone on the same side of the table, or in other words, everyone rows in the same direction. Mm-hmm. So I don't like adversarial relationships. It's to me, there is a deal structure between a company and an employee, between two companies doing business together, between a vendor and a supplier and a company. Doesn't matter what it is. There's a deal structure that can be created where when you win, you all win. And when you lose, you all lose. And when you do that, everyone's rowing in the same direction. Everyone's on the same side of the table. You avoid the adversarial stuff. And then when you crush it, you celebrate those wins together and everyone's happy. And when things don't go well, there's not a winner and then other losers.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of friends who are lawyers. I don't mean to make fun of the profession, but lawyers are typically trained to try to get the upper hand, right? Yeah. Almost by definition. And that mindset in a business deal is one I don't like. I prefer a deal where, it's balanced and fair. Everybody's happy going in. And when you win, you all win.
Now, we've chatted about so many things already today, but is there anything I didn't ask you about that you think would resonate with our audience?
So my simple question to them would be, what keeps you up at night? Really, right? Because when you founded a company, when you're running a company, you got a million things going on. And, inevitably of the 20 things on your plate or your list, there are 3 or 5 that are really stressing you out. If those things keep repeating, right? If there are certain functions that are keeping you up at night or certain things that aren't going well in the business, then get some outside help, right? Don't flounder with that. And again, a lot of this comes down to size. If you're doing a few million in revenues, you can't go hire a high caliber CEO. You just don't have the money for it. But there are ways to get that, right? You can get fractional help. Like I do a lot of fractional advisory, like on my LinkedIn profile, it just says advisor. But those are companies who brought me in and said, you've got some skill sets that we're weak in right now or that we're missing. Can you come in for 6 months or a year and help improve those parts of the business? And, sometimes those are, cash deals, sometimes they're equity deals, sometimes they're a combination of the two. But those are situations where the CEO recognized that they had a weakness and went outside and didn't hire a full-time CEO to replace them, but went outside and said, I'd like to find somebody with the experience to help us at these weak parts of our business. And I think that's a segue there is how do you do that? Like, I keep coming down to size, but if you have the revenues and or the capital, right? If somebody's raised a big slug of capital, then you've got the money to hire someone with a lot of experience because it's not cheap. Like someone's like me, if I was going to do something full time, it's not cheap. But there are other creative ways of doing it, right? There are, I've done deals where I get a stake in the company and there's no cash involved. I've done deals where we create a deal structure where what I get paid in the future is tied to the upside of the company, right? Like, starting at a base of what the company's doing now, but I get a piece of everything above that. So there are creative ways that starts with recognizing of where I am now in my company and where I want to go. What are we missing? What is not super strong? And how can I go find a person or, the resources to come in and help me crush it at those things that we need to be better at? And then get really creative on deal structure. Just sit down and hammer it out. And, maybe it's a retainer for a while and maybe there's a commission type thing or, tied to upside. Maybe there's an equity portion or maybe there's a combination of them. So I would say to a founder with, revenues 5-10 million or less, don't just assume that you don't have a way to make this happen. You can, if you recognize your weaknesses, if you find the right talent, there might be a creative way to work out how to come in. And then for companies that are larger, it's easier, right? Because you've got cash flow.
Well, that is a great segue into if someone's listening to this and they're like, I like Brian, I want to reach out, pick his brain, see if there's anything there. How do they get a hold of you?
Just ding me through LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way. I'm not great about it. It may take a few days, but ding me through LinkedIn or my email address is ba@smallpondgroup.com. Smallpond's a little entity that I created that no one knows about, but it's what I use to invest in companies and do consulting and advisory deals. So, that's easy. LinkedIn, there are a lot of Brian Andersons. It's pretty common name. But if you search on LinkedIn, Brian Anderson CEO, it'll probably come up, and, see my photo and so forth. But LinkedIn or email ba@smallpondgroup.com.
Yeah. And we'll make sure to link to that stuff in the show notes. Brian, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks, Chase. Really appreciate it.
We can't thank our guests enough for coming on the show and sharing their knowledge and journey with us. We've got a lot to think about and potentially add into our own businesses. You can find all the links in the show notes. You can subscribe to the newsletter at honestycommerce.co to get each episode delivered right into your inbox. If you're enjoying this content, consider leaving a review on iTunes. That really helps us out. Lastly, if you're a store owner looking for an amazing partner to help you get your Shopify store to the next level, reach out to Electric Eye at electriceye.io/connect. Until next time.